Hello Primary 5, how are you today? I hope you are fine. Today we are going to study symmetrical figures and axis of symmetry. So we can start by looking at these figures. When we look at these figures, we notice that there is a straight line, and this straight line divides this figure into two equal or two identical parts. And this straight line is known as the axis of symmetry, And we notice that if the star folded on the axis of symmetry, the two parts or the two halves will coincide on each other. And when we look at the second figure, we have this square, and this square can be folded on this axis of symmetry, L1, and the two halves will coincide on each other, or we can use L2 to fold this square, and the two halves will coincide on each other, or we can use L3 or L4. So the square have four axes of symmetry. And if we look at this isosceles triangle, we have these two sides are equal in length, and this triangle have just one axis of symmetry. And when we look at this axis of symmetry, we can fold this triangle on the axis of symmetry, and the two halves will coincide on each other. And when we look at this figure, we can fold this figure around L, or around the axis of symmetry, and this figure called hexagon. And in the hexagon, we have 5 lines of symmetry, or 5 axes of symmetry. We have L1. We can fold this hexagon on L1, and the two halves will coincide on each other. And we can fold this hexagon around L2, and the two halves will coincide on each other, or we can use L3, or we can fold it on L4, or we can fold it on L5, and the two sides will coincide on each other. And when we look at the last figure, in this figure we can fold this figure on L, or on this straight line, and this straight line called the axis of symmetry, because the two halves will coincide on each other. So the meaning of the line of symmetry, or the axis of symmetry, is the straight line that divides the shape or the figure into two identical parts. And when the two parts folded on this straight line, the two halves will coincide on each other. So now let's look at this remark. In this remark, we have the straight line L is considered to be an axis of symmetry for a figure if every point on that figure has an identical point on the same figure. So every point on that figure has an identical point on the same figure with respect to the line L. For example, in this figure, we have this point has an identical point on the same figure with respect to the line L, or to the axis of symmetry. Now we finished our lesson, and by the end of the lesson, study hard and stay safe. Good luck.